Welcome to the CLI-ALPMA Innovation and Legaltech Week 2021 on-demand program. This session is part of our Reinventing Legal Business theme and focuses on whether we can put tech at the heart of legal practice today. This is a CEO-COO spotlight session, so I'm very pleased to have joining me today, Tessa van Duyn, CEO and practice leader at Moores, Kim Trajer, COO of McCullough Robertson, and Mark Wiggins, CEO of Payne Lawyers. So before we dive into this session, I think it's important to provide a little bit of context about your firms that you all work for. So in your own words, can I get you to let everybody know a little about your firm? So I'm looking for size, location, types of law practiced, and year established. Mark, do you mind if I start with you? Can you just give a little bit of context?
Not at all. Payne Lawyers has been around for nearly 30 years. We incorporated in 2009. We have 6 offices, most of them along the eastern seaboard, and we operate in the areas of industrial and employment law, personal injuries law, and wills, estates, family law is a small part of what we do. And I've got a total team of 69 people.
Oh, lovely. And Kim, how about yourself?
Okay, well, McCullough Robertson was established in 1926, so this year we're 95 odd years old. We've got about 350 staff. We are headquartered in Brisbane and a national firm, so Brisbane, Sydney, Newcastle, Canberra, Melbourne. And we're a full service commercial and corporate firm, so commercial real estate disputes, all of those things, and expertise in sort of industries like resources and renewables, government, TMT, food and agribusiness. Yeah, been around for, as I said, 95 years, so a long time.
Awesome. And Tessa?
So Moores is based in Melbourne, and we just have a Victorian practice. We're not national. Currently we have 62 people on staff, and we are specialist practitioners, I guess. We have 2 sort of specialist practice groups. We service individuals that are purpose aligned in our sort of private clients business, which covers estate planning, probate, estate litigation and family law. And we also do a bit of property for our individual clients. Then we have our organisational clients, and we service them in the areas of workplace relations, not-for-profit, education, compliance, regulation, and we have a property and construction team.
Wow, okay. So we've got a little bit of a range in terms of sizes, locations, and the like. So that's great. So, okay, back to our topic. So in this session, we want to dive obviously into tech and find out if it's at the heart of legal practices today. So this session's not going to be about the best technology or about the amount of technology that you use within your law firms, but more so the role that technology plays within your firms and your attitude towards tech, the uses of tech, and then its applications. So I want to start by taking a really quick pulse around the room, and I'm looking for just yes or no answers, please. So do you think that legal tech is at the heart of legal practices today, and is it at the heart of your practice? So what do we say? Where are we sitting on this? Is it at the heart? No? You're shaking your head, Kim. That's a no from you. It's a no from you, Tessa? Mark? No. Okay. All right. So if it's not then at the heart of your law firms, I'm keen obviously to hear what is at the heart of your law firms. What is? Tessa, perhaps I'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't think this will be a unique response, Emma, but people are definitely at the heart of our practice at Moores.
And Kim?
Yeah, I'd say again, people and culture. So I think genuinely being open to new ways of doing things and also having a capability to actually implement some of those new ways.
Okay. All right. And Mark, yeah. Where do you sit? What's...
Most definitely. People is getting towards the core of what we're doing. We used to be like, I suppose, many firms were, and they were transactional in nature. And we're on the journey to make people the centre of everything, and develop relationships with everyone that we have, and develop those relationships along the lines of a true relationship, not just a transactional relationship.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're on a bit of a journey.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'm hearing people and culture are really the heart. So that then means that tech isn't the heart. So where do you put tech or rank tech in terms of importance? I mean, it must be important because we do use it every day. But Tessa, again, I might start with you. Where does tech sit in terms of importance for you at Moores?
I mean, I'd say I don't want to get sort of stuck in a hierarchy, I suppose, of what is of most importance. I think people is definitely number one. The others are kind of equal seconds, I suppose, in the sense that tech is right up there. I'd be naive to say that it's not integral to everything that we do. But I think the focus of it is as an enabler. So really the way that we use technology is to enable our people to create, the greatest amount of value that they can for the clients and the communities that we're serving. The other side of that is that it's absolutely fundamental to our business operations, of course. Mark said that, Hall Payne are on a journey, and we are also evolving as the landscape and the community around us evolves. The pandemic is a perfect, example of how we are all being forced to evolve at speeds greater than we might be comfortable with. And tech's had a really big part in that evolution too. But I think fundamentally it's about creating efficiencies as that really focus on enhancing productivity, which then, flows through to the outputs of what we're doing and what we can achieve for our clients.
And Kim?
Yeah, I'd agree with Tessa. I mean, it's an enabler. It's one of the tools and the ways that we support our people to basically make their jobs easier, to get the information to them that they need as easily as possible and get the boring things done more quickly so they can focus on their clients and solving complex problems and those sorts of things, growing relationships in their teams. And obviously we want to make things as efficient and cost effective as we can. I think maybe the other point that hasn't been raised yet is that the technology can be really useful in supporting quality and consistency. So that would be the other point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Mark?
Yeah, I'd agree with the ladies. I don't have a lot of extra to add. Technology is an enabler. It's as simple as that. I think COVID last year brought it to the forefront, and a lot of firms found they were either lacking in not so much the tech, but the understanding of the tech and the application of various programs. But I believe, depending on each vision that every firm has, it's going to guide us to where tech may sit in that. And I think we've got to be careful. I certainly, for myself, I do. I get bombarded by different offers, different systems, different programs, a lot of them replicating tech that you already have. And it's the noise can often get too great, and sometimes you've just got to close things down a little bit so that you can concentrate on what is core and important, but you've still got to be aware of everything that's going on out there. It'll never be number one. I would hate to work anywhere where tech was number one. And it's pleasing to be amongst peers that hold people in such high esteem where they should be. But as has been said, it's a tool, it's an enabler, and it helps us to process more with less effort.
So obviously then tech's got a role in your firms, and what I'm hearing is that tech needs to be an enabler or is an enabler. And for me, I guess that's more an attitude of acceptance or embracement towards tech and the role that it plays. So do you think the attitude, is that the attitude that you need, I guess, within your firm? And how do you approach the use of tech? In particular, do any of you have any guiding principles that you work with that helps you in particular with tech adoption? Kim, have you got any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I guess we start usually with the problem that we're trying to solve, and rather than the technology or what that might look like. And I guess depending on what that problem is, the solution might be tech, but it might be, something we've got already. It might be a low tech, or it might be a solution that is actually changing a process or a system that or a policy about how we do something. In terms of other relevant sort of principles, I guess the other thing we look at is where the problem that we're trying to solve and how often that comes up, and how for how many people and in what offices and in what groups and cohorts and that sort of thing. So if it's something that comes up, in say a matter opening or something like that, where it's, every day we have, however many going through, impacts a whole lot of people in the process, that will be the approach to that, and what we do and how we might solve it is quite different to something that might only be experienced by a couple of people in one office, once a month. So that's another I guess, factor. And then when we roll it out, I guess we if we decide that it is tech, then we really need to communicate as well about why we're doing what we're doing, and also what's in it for the people that we're trying to engage in the process, to make it so they're really clear on what we're doing, and then we make it really easy for them, so that lots of clear cheat sheets and guidance about how to use it, because that's the other thing I think that really impacts adoption, is if it's too hard when you first show it to them, then you lose your chance of getting them to try it and getting them to sort of embed it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And Mark, this this kind of touches on, I guess, what you were just saying before, that there's a lot of tech out there, and it can get quite there's a lot out there, a lot to sift through. So how do you approach tech adoption within your firm?
I believe what Kim said is the critical first step. What process, what problem are we trying to solve? And it's not just a matter of, okay, here's a great looking bit of tech. I want to use this. Let's get it out there into as many places as we can. That's cart before the horse stuff. But where you have a clear need, then it's a matter of, and for mine, it's either someone that I know in the legal industry or the legal tech industry that may be using something that I consider to be of value. Reach out to colleagues and ask the question, this is the problem we have. Do you have the same, and what are you doing? And from there, reach out to the end supplier. We all hear about this disruption in legal today, and I believe the biggest part of it, and I often joke about dragging the industry from the 18th century to the 21st. But a lot of what has been done in the past is steeped in tradition. Tech knows no tradition. Tech, all tech is, you've got tech today, and in 5 days' time, it's going to be different, because tech is moving so quickly, it's not funny. We hear about the fourth industrial revolution. This is a huge part of it, and a big part of what we have to do is to be aware of what's going on and try not to be distracted by all these other bells and whistles that are available. And once again, what is the problem? What do we want to achieve out of this before you go and start looking?
Yeah. So you're saying tech, it's not tech for tech's sake.
That's
right? So tech needs to have an actual purpose and be integrated, otherwise it's, it will be underutilized.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
If I can extrapolate that a little bit, I would say, not change for change's sake either. And I think one of the biggest learnings I've had particularly, I mean, it was definitely revealed, the cracks were revealed as a result of COVID, but is that you really need to treat any kind of tech implementation and adoption as a change management piece. So as you would any other kind of change that you're trying to, you know, trying to foster and then implement and, you know, enhance in terms of the adoption across the firm. One way that we've quite successfully looked at tech, but also really at the heart of what we've just been talking about, which is identifying the problems that we're trying to solve, is to use multidisciplinary teams across the firm to do that, so that you're not just always going to, you know, there's that kind of, I think, harking back to your comments, Mark, in the context of tradition and how, you know, the legal profession as a professional services category is pretty much, you know, we're quite archaic in that way, and I think we've got a deserved reputation as such. We are sort of trying to claw back some of that, I think, and we've shown that over the last 12 months, but I'm pretty sure that the Big Four consultants and the accounting firms have been laughing at us from the sidelines. But in any event, I've found that going to people that are, you know, a multidisciplinary team of non-lawyers, lawyers, you know, our business ops people, our frontline staff in terms of our client liaison officers, like actually, and of course our, you know, our sort of business development, marketing and finance staff, bringing all of those brains together has had some really special kind of effects, I suppose, for us. They've really, it's enabled a much more creative space to think about how to solve some of the problems that we've been dealing with. And I would say that, you know, any time that we might be throwing up tech as a potential solution or a lever that we might use to solve a problem, doing it in a fashion that brings different practice, different professional experience, different, you know, thinking to it has definitely been a good starting principle.
Okay, so a couple of things from there. So can I ask, so we're talking about multidisciplinary teams, bringing everybody together, which I think is, you know, the way forward. And, you know, and as part of a change management piece, it is about that buy-in as well. It gets buy-in across the whole company or firm really, really early, which is integral and important. But how many different or how many what am I trying to say? The business operations, how large is that team within your firms? Tessa, I'm going to come back to you, Tessa.
Yeah.
How many operational?
So we, as a ratio, I think we have about 60, it's probably close to now to about 55% fee earner to 45% non-fee earners.
Yeah.
And that that includes me as an example. It's quite a, you know, the non-fee earning group is quite broad, and I think but when I talk to multidisciplinary teams, we actually have a structure around that. So we have 5 key area teams that I've created that, you know, all are discharged with the responsibility of supporting Moore's achieve its strategic objectives and priorities. And that has, each of those 5 groups have membership of people across the firm. So they will include, definitely they'll include, you know, lawyers right down, you know, across the spectrum in terms of the hierarchy. There might be a practice leader, which is our partner equivalent to a graduate lawyer. It will generally include legal assistants. It will include somebody from business ops. Yeah, it's a spread.
Yeah, good. And is that the same for you, Kim? I mean, you're a much larger firm.
Yeah, so we have, I guess, the structure a little bit differently, but we have about 80 people in our support services area. So that's all of the traditional, you know, IT, finance, BDM, HR, all that sort of thing. And it's interesting bringing those teams together, though, with the lawyers and the legal assistants on all sorts of projects, because I think that's where you get, as you say, Tessa, that different approach, problem solving, where you have, people's eyes being opened as to what different parts, I guess, of the firm are capable of doing, what the technology is able to do and how it works. We've had a couple of really interesting experiences recently where we've brought teams together, and in fact, the legal advice aspect of what the client's seeking is actually a small part of what they need. So during COVID, we actually had one of the providers of the loans to the community that the government released, and so we had obviously a lot of those people, the borrowers wanting to get access to the loans that the government had announced very quickly to keep their businesses afloat, to keep their staff being paid and all that sort of thing. And so we had to come together, and obviously there was the loan documents and the process around the legal nature of that. But, we had to build automated systems, and we had to have processing, and we had to have all these teams and tech to set up how it was going to be done. Of course, we were all at that same time moving home, within, a couple of days to work remotely, and this whole thing had to be set up, within sort of less than a week, and to watch all of those different teams come together, and for the lawyers, particularly some of the more senior partners, I guess, who had always thought that the legal advice was at the heart of it, to actually see that none of it could have happened without all the other bits contributing to it was really interesting. The other thing that we're seeing a fair bit of is other support services being provided to clients. So, for example, our legal automation team, we've got some clients who have bought the same software that we use to do all our document automation, which we've been using for a very long time. And our legal automation team is actually coding the documents to set them up for automation for the clients. So it's not just the content, I guess, of those, but, the way that they're going to operate, things like helping them do mail merges where they've got to notify around some of the recent, issues around underpayment or overpayment of awards and those sorts of things, because the clients are grappling with what their obligations are, and they don't actually have that in-house capability to, be super sophisticated with the way their spreadsheets all link together and do all those things, and then set up the mail merges so that they can actually then, meet their regulatory requirements. So there's more and more of it happening, and I think more holistic solutions being provided, which is really exciting.
Yeah, that's really good. And just, Mark, before I get to you, I just want to touch on something that you just said, Kim, and I hope that I'm going to have time to bring up something a little later. But for me, what you just said was that the tech enabled you to scale to a really, in a really quick time frame.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the things that tech does offer, is that scalability of service. So, Mark, coming back to you with your multidisciplinary team, where do you sit up at Hall Payne?
For mine and what we do here, multidisciplinary is the only way to go. When I first started, I wanted to understand what it was we did and how it was being done. And I've now managed to delegate that role on. But, as I keep telling people, I don't know what you do. So because I don't know, I don't understand the problems you have. And unless you communicate those problems, and then we get off into a whole different field about people being, feeling safe to be able to, speak and that. But we've introduced the multidisciplinary teams. So we have our group services coordinator. She sits in on every one of these meetings, and then representatives from each of the departments that we have, and they can come together. Well, this is what we need to achieve. Now that's okay in one department, but it may not be the same thing in another department. And to try and get this tech to support the workflow, then you've got to understand all these little bylines and everything else like that, so that you can bring them into play. And having people from across various areas and with different skill levels is really, really good, because the person with no experience and our group services coordinator, she's brilliant, phenomenal young woman. Like skill levels just to burn, she is so good. Came from a non-legal area, and I have tended to do that so that they can challenge what it is that we do. And that's, once again, it's just getting those different teams, different people to come together and understand. They're not criticising, they're just wanting to understand.
It's where the magic happens.
Oh,
yeah, it is. And actually, Mark, as you were speaking, it reminded me that you are relatively, still new to legal in terms of, if we talk veterans, and I'm not sure I'm a veteran of the legal industry yet, but Mark, you came in from was it financial services or was it finance? Yeah, so a different sector. So, it would have been eye-opening, and using multidisciplinary teams might have been a natural thing that happened externally or in that other sector, and you bring it in here. So that's great.
Yeah.
Tessa, you didn't have anything to add on that? No? Or other than what you've already said? The other thing, Kim, that I think is interesting too, coming out of that conversation, and I think some of the client stuff we'll touch on in a bit, but you mentioned earlier when we started this this recording that your firm is 95, you're nearly 100, which means that you must have embraced that mindset. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been here. You wouldn't have lasted 100 years unless you have evolved.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, and it's interesting because we have, and we're still called the same thing, which is actually another thing that's really unusual. So there's a lot of this tradition and things that we've really held on to, and culture's one of them. But yeah, there's a whole range of things where newcomers to the firm are like, oh wow, this is really cool. I've never seen somewhere that has all these different things that we've built over the last however long that's been that we've had this innovation focus. So
yeah, great. Now, we've been talking, I guess, about the use of technology, and so far what I'm hearing is there's a use internally to drive operational efficiencies, but then there's also that client piece where it's the client engagement, the adding of value, and the ability to scale or quickly respond, I guess, to client demands. So how far have your firms gone, and are you embracing tech? I mean, obviously, Kim, you spoke about it. You are, and perhaps I'll ask you if you want to flesh out anything more here to start. But is that the way of the future, I guess, for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's at the heart of how we live our lives now. I mean, you only have to think back to what. I think in any role, if you looked at what you were doing 5 years ago and how you were doing it compared to now, there'd be an enormous amount of change, just like there is in our lives. So it's definitely part of who we are and how we do things now. And I think that's only going to evolve. I'd like to think that a lot of the hype around some of the areas of technology will perhaps develop further and become a bit more reality. And I guess in that space, the example I always think of is some of the promises that the AI tool, providers sort of say, oh, I can do this and this and this. And I have to say, in our experience, when we've actually tried to make it do, a range of the things that we're promised it can do, we've been a little bit underwhelmed. So I think that's an area where, say, the hype has overtaken the reality of it. But I think that it will come over time, and it's just about, there's probably a few different things with all of this technology, and there's the infrastructure of the technology that's set up. There's the data that's going into it, and the quality of that obviously impacts on what you can pull out of it, but also the literacy around how people are using it and then how they're interpreting, what you can pull out of it. So there's all sorts of different places that it can, I guess, fall down or be fantastic. And I think there's probably just some aspects of tech that are still in the early stages, and what they've, there's a lot of hype because of what they promised, but but we're not quite there yet. So I think, and we will get there, and then I think there'll be something else new, because there always is. And so then it will be, that will probably have a whole lot of hype, and then it will take a while for that to catch up. So yeah, I think it's part of the future. It's part of how we live our lives and how we're practicing. And I think that the best thing that we can all do is really engage with it ourselves, and also with the as you said, Mark, before, collaborate with each other, and also with the developers of it, because they're software developers, say, and they don't really know what we need these products to do unless we talk to them and tell them. So, you know, there's all of that. I think, again, if we all work together, then, you know, the outcome's going to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. Tessa?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Kim's saying, and that focus on collaboration is absolutely key. I think, like, there's some incredibly whip smart people out there who are actually legal refugees, you know, like they've actually jumped from the legal profession into developing tech solutions to legal problems because they've experienced them themselves. And so they're the kinds of people that I'm loving talking to, and, you know, picking their brains and trying to understand how we can work together to solve our clients' problems, and really provide solutions that are really fit for purpose. In terms of how much we've actually integrated that into our own practice, I would say we're still evolving. Like, we're pretty good at, you know, we've got the right attitude, and we're good at adopting things that make our lives easier. But we're not at that point that, you know, say the example that Kim spoke to earlier about scaling to the point of providing the that, you know, that not only the tech solution, but actually support and capacity building to the clients to implement it. I think that's amazing, and that is real. That's very smart diversification, I think, without actually moving too far outside of the specialisation, you know, that McCullough Robertson are known for. I think that's the really clever, innovative way that you know, legal firms should be evolving to best meet their clients' needs. So we're not quite as far down that journey as you might be, Kim, but we're open to it. I think one of the biggest challenges that I see in terms of tech adoption is really finding internal champions for that. And so much of that, Mark, you touched on this earlier, but it's about selling the benefits to your people so that they're willing to, they can tangibly see the return on investment, and therefore are willing to kind of front up in that capital. And capital is not dollar figures in their minds, it's time. You know, time and energy, really, because I think everybody's pretty fatigued by change at the moment. So that's a challenge for us, but I think it can be overcome. It's just about being clear about what the utility and the wins are for people, and making sure that there are people charged with being those champions internally, so that, you know, it doesn't just sit on the shelf and collect dust. Because, yeah, that we've seen that happen over time. You know, Moores is celebrating its 50th birthday this year, so we too have kind of seen how things can evolve and not evolve over time. Some things get left behind. So, yeah, that's an interesting challenge, I think, for us.
Mark?
Yeah, what both ladies have said is absolutely spot on, and my belief is that the level of adaptation comes from the people that you have in the organisation, and how and the selling of the benefit of something as compared to, oh, this is going to make your job easier and save you time. You try to sell it on the time savings, they're immediately going to start thinking, okay, well, if I have less to do and you're wanting to encourage me down that path, is my job safe? You know, so it's a really, really interesting mix. And my challenge has been trying to build on the use of technology that we already had. You know, so we didn't have to buy anything, but we had the technology sitting there underutilised, and then just coaching and coaxing people to start using it so that it does make their job easier. It does eradicate all those annoying little 1% nuisance things they have every day, and subconsciously they don't even know they're there or they're getting annoyed with those things, but they are. The other big thing on the tech piece, and Kim, you touched on it, is that from what I see, that the providers and suppliers of tech believe that their bit of tech is the be-all and end-all, and we don't need to work with anyone else. You know, like, for God's sake, guys, I know nothing about this stuff, but I know that most programs, if you write them the right way, they will integrate and they will talk, and it will still protect your proprietary knowledge and software and everything, you know. But for me, I know what I want to achieve. And if I need 3 bits of tech to make it happen, well, I want 3 bits of tech. Now, I'm not going to sit here and convince you of it. You need to be talking to the other guys. How are you going to make it work? If you can't make it work, I'll go find some other suppliers. Like, I really don't care. But this is the issue that we have. And in the back of my mind, I'm always cognizant of our customers of tomorrow, because I read a statistic not so long ago that, you know, over 50% of your Gen Xers and millennials will enter life and start going through life with a solid desire to never want to interact face-to-face with a human being. Everything will be online. They will order their meals online and have them delivered, or they'll go through a drive-through and pick it up. That's how they're going to interact in life. That's quite scary, but I, as a supplier of legal services, can't say, oh, you're wrong, that's ridiculous. I have to find a way to be able to support that and provide the services to them. And this is where we get the, you know, as Tessa said earlier, you know, that archaic way of thinking, you know. And when I first joined legal, I was certain there was still a senior partner or someone tucked away in a downstairs office with a quill and parchment. You know, they're writing things still. But that's the level of thinking that comes through and you confront at times is, you know, but why? You know, I've never had to do that. No, but the customer of tomorrow wants it, you know, so we have to change. So there's a number of hurdles that we all face apart from the tech itself.
Well, that's that's really interesting. I mean, you know, talking about designing tech services, Mark, that's really sad. If people are at the heart of our businesses and they want to do everything online and not interact with each other, you know, that's, I don't know how I feel about that for the future.
But once again, you know, without being too obtuse about it, like if that's how someone chooses to live their life, then okay, you know, it's, where do I sit to go, no, that's ridiculous, you know? Okay, it's and similarly to growing our business, you know, we have many offices, but we deal with people all over the place, and we can, with some types of matters, we can do that, but we've got the technology to be able to do that. So face-to-face may not mean, and particularly COVID is a brilliant example, you know, you can't come face-to-face. Yeah. So it's going to be via video or something like that. And one of the ladies said it earlier in the piece, is that it was quite a surprise to many lawyers and partners when we returned to the office how well the business ran during this shutdown, you know. Yeah, like the tools are there. They're pretty damn easy to use.
Absolutely.
People have just got to be shown. Yeah. And once they're shown and it's there and they try it and it works, okay, they're happy.
Yeah. So maybe we might, I mean, within your firms, have you found that the whole COVID working from home, has it driven some momentum in terms of tech and adoption? I would imagine it would have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you see that flowing on and into the future?
Yeah, I think though, so we fortunately had a new video conferencing platform that had been rolled out a couple of months before we all had to go home, and there were a range of people who'd been trained in it, or maybe they went to a session and had forgotten or whatever. But of course, everybody learned very quickly, including the people who would probably never have learned had we not have had COVID. So the uptake, we did a lot of soul searching through the process and have had a whole renewal plan through the COVID time. And a lot of that, though, we got a lot of data around, what we had before. So with the video conferencing, for example, in a month we had, X number of meetings and it went to this many thousand, it was just this enormous uptake. And so I think there's probably some benefit in reminding people of what they were able to achieve in that time and trying to harness some of the positivity and the momentum around that, because there was, as you say, there's lots of, there's change fatigue, and there was lots of different things that all of us are had to deal with and are having to deal with on an ongoing basis. So I think there's benefit. Mark, you talk about how you get everyone to change, and I find that competition's a pretty good thing amongst lawyers, and so if one group has been through a bit of a process with us, for example around profitability and changing, then and it's successful, and we talk about it and the team talks about it, and then there's others going, oh well, what did they get that I haven't had yet, and what do I want? So there's sort of a bit of that. Everyone else is doing it, so have you got on board yet, kind of thing, and reminding ourselves about, or reminding our people, including the older, less tech savvy people generally, what they were able to do, which was pretty amazing when you think about it. So, yeah.
Good. I love the FOMO.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a driver.
But it works.
Yeah, exactly. And now you just touched then on, you're obviously looking and using your data to inform business decisions. So is everybody else sort of, I know that we do that at ALPMA. Good data is brilliant. And a lot of this technology, stores a lot of data. And as long as you can get that data out and use it in a way that's meaningful, that really is powerful. Yeah. Now, Kim, you also mentioned, we were talking before, and this applies to everybody. Mark, your firm's 30 years, Tessa 50 years, Kim, you're nearly at 100. I'm rounding you up. We're rounding up. We're nearly at a century. But and you look at the evolution over that time, but you must have seen massive evolution from March 2020. To now, and I think it is really important to stop, reflect, obviously, with the online summit that we're putting on the conference. It is about reflect, reset, and go. So okay. So then, hypothetically, and we've a couple of things left to discuss, but this is a hypothetical. So if you had to restart your business or your firm again tomorrow, would you rebuild it the same way, using the same tech, same systems, same processes, and the mindset that you have today? What would you change? Mark, should I go? You're laughing. Let's go with you. What would you change? Would you keep everything?
No.
Okay.
I often joke that at the first firm that I worked at, and certainly here, that the best way forward would have been to get a bobcat into one corner of the business and just push everything out the other end of it. Seems a little harsh, I know. For mine, it's the mindset that is the big thing, and we people are at the top of all our agendas, and I find that it's that people factor that comes into play, because once again we're in an industry that has had certain types of people for long periods of time, and they've done work a certain way, and now we're trying to get them to change and to adapt, adopt, and use new technologies. For myself personally, I found the biggest issue that I had during the COVID period was not so much the technology and people getting them to use it, but people being able to continue their life, if you like, whilst all this was going on. And to explain a simple story, one of my legal assistants, I was talking to her one day, and she was getting frustrated, upset, because she wasn't able to, if her children were crying for her, she felt she had a responsibility to put them to one side because I've got work to do. And I said to her, well, no, your children have to come first. Now, yes, if something is urgent, then you need to negotiate with your partner who is also working from home that they take the children for a period of time. But, you know, we as an industry need to adapt, and because everyone was locked down, you know, it's not the same as them being at work and the children are in daycare. It's just impossible to cut life out of what we do. So getting back to the whole mindset thing, this is where, you know, I would certainly commence again with people who have experience but are also very, very lateral and outside the box thinkers, because everything we do, yes, the rule of law and the letter of law is totally different to the business of law. And it's a matter of, okay, the business of law and how do we get that to relate to this thing called, you know, the letter of law. And, you know, that's the big challenge, I feel. And certainly coming from outside, you know, it was very different because I spend a lot of time shaking my head. I still do, sometimes in private. But it's this whole, and it's just getting rid of the mindset of, well, we've always done it that way. And props to McCullough's who have, you know, got to 100, and also to Moores who've got to 50. You know, and having people there who have been a part of that journey and have been willing participants in it along the way. You know, that's something that we have, you know, a number of people here who are have been with us for a long time, and I'm talking over 15 years, and that's a big chunk of our support staff. You know, that's brilliant, but the business has been siloed into lawyer assistant, you know, and that's okay, but that's not how business today operates.
Can I sorry.
Yeah, jump in, Tessa, yeah, please.
I really hear what you're saying, Mark. Like, it resonates with me. I'm in a very fortunate position to have inherited, I suppose, leadership of a business that genuinely puts people at the heart of its practice. And with that, I've always known this in my heart of hearts, but it's incredible because once you do that, once everybody actually signs up, like they're fully, you know, committed to the shared purpose of the organisation, and they live the values as an organisation, but also as a community, and then as individuals as well, I've found that there is enough trust with one another to actually take those leaps of faith and evolve. And you know what? The trust is there as this kind of, it's a safety net because it gives you that freedom to make mistakes. It gives you the freedom to innovate, knowing that if you fail, that's okay because we're in this together as a business. Yeah. And I think that the relationships and that trust also form the foundation for courage. And you can't embrace change. You can't take risks and capitalise on that without courage. Yeah. And part of what I know, Kim, you'll have a lot to say about this in terms of your culture of innovation at McCullough, but I think what I try and encourage people to do is feel safe enough to be curious about everything that they're doing. So ask the question, can I do this differently? Is there another way to do this? How do we improve it? And do that genuinely, knowing that there will be support regardless of what the answer and the ultimate outcome is.
Yeah. Just very, very quickly, and I apologise for jumping in, but what you said, Tessa, about the learning part of things, I'm getting to the point now is that if people come and tell me I've made a mistake, I stop them. I go, no, you haven't. You're learning something.
Yeah.
This whole concept that something hasn't worked, we've made a mistake, that's it, throw it in the bin. Life isn't like that. Nothing is like that. The Wright brothers never got into the air until they bounced a few times. You don't ride a bike without falling off and grazing knees and elbows. And yet in business we've got to be perfect. It's impossible.
That perfectionism is quite unique, though, Mark, to lawyers. It's what we were conditioned to know the answer from day dot, and trying to unpack that and really unlearn that is that's a lifetime of therapy or of change.
A law firm that I used to work out, and obviously the legal industry is very black and white, you're right or wrong, which is what you're talking about there, Mark, right or wrong. But whereas for me, I think that lawyers argue the grey, right? And I find that the people are the grey as well, There's a lot of shades between white and black, and, you need to just work with it.
Yeah, the other difficult thing is that as lawyers, we are taught to find loopholes and to find the thing that's wrong in whatever, might be 95% right, but the thing you're going to point out are the 5% things that are, where there's a risk for the client, or there's, whatever it happens to be. Yeah. So what I tend to do because that's the mindset with which often, a team of lawyers will approach some new solution or a project that we're doing or something else. So I just call it out and say, I know you're going to think like this, and I know this is what you do when you get back to your desk, but let's not do that, and let's focus on these things. And then whenever they do it, I go, no. And so just to try and, you make it a bit of fun, I guess on the failure part as well, I tell stories all the time about some of the disasters that we've had and different, business things that we've tried, platforms we've built, all sorts of things, just to try and make people feel safe about actually having a go. It hasn't always been like it is now. It's not perfect now. I mean, it's not, maybe I make it sound like it is, but it's not. And so, but we've learned an awful lot along the way. And it was interesting, probably about 5 years ago, we did an innovation jam, which was really just an online portal about trying to start this sort of formally building this culture of innovation around people suggesting ideas and then working on projects and implementing things. And we had all these questions around, using technology to improve service delivery and all sorts of things. And then we thought, we're giving this to everyone in the firm, from, we wanted people in the mailroom and all, right through to the senior partner to be responding to it. And so we added another question at the end, which was, what's the dumbest thing we do and how can we fix it? And we were just inundated with, dumb things that we do, and then suggestions to fix them and various other things. And that was a question that people held on to and just sort of, vented. And but there was just that was sort of the start of years and years of a project pipeline that was fantastic. But I think even phrasing in that way made it sort of more acceptable, that we realised that there was a whole lot of stuff that was broken, and so it was okay to say that, and then let's focus on how we might fix it. So it's sort of about language as well, I think.
Absolutely. And putting those questions in everywhere. Like I know that in those ongoing conversations, what should we stop doing? And every time you touch something, if you pick it up, have a little think about it. But again, that's a mindset. Okay, look, I'm conscious of time, and I do want to just touch on this article. So I read, and I'm not sure if any of you saw it, but it was Mark Cohen's article that he published on LinkedIn just last week called Why Can't the Legal Function Prove Its Value? But there was one thing in there that I thought was particularly interesting for this session. Hopefully you find it interesting too. Okay, but he quotes in there Derek Bock, the former president of Harvard and the dean of its law school, and he quotes him as saying that there's far too much law for those that can afford it and far too little for those that cannot. And so my question, when we're now looking into the future, is where do you see the application of technology into the future, and where do you see legal practices going, and are we at the tip of the iceberg? And does tech help solve, that quote with the scalability that you were talking about before, Kim? So I'm just going to open this up to everyone. Whoever wants to jump in, if you've got a thought on this, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said before, technology is such a part of our lives, and it's just going to continue to be a part of every business and every organisation.
Yeah.
We've talked about the fact that, perhaps law firms that haven't been uptaken the opportunity as quickly as some other industries, and I think there's a lot of focus on it now like there never was before. I think provided we all keep talking about it and people see the benefits of it, then then it absolutely will increase and improve. And I'm hoping that then, as we talked about before, that a range of the suppliers of products will also get together and try to make it easier for us as well, because some of the legacy systems and the way that things don't talk to each other and connect and that kind of thing does make it very difficult, particularly for people or organisations that don't have a lot of resources. And I think that there's lots of smaller firms where it's, some of it's just too hard. So there could be a lot of improvement there, and I guess equally in that access to justice sort of space, where there's people who perhaps have an internet connection and could maybe solve some of their legal problems, by finding information that we could just come to them. Yeah. Which is kind of what you were saying before, Mark, about the future.
Yeah, it's and Emma, I know you were at the ALPMA Summit, and I've forgotten this guy's name, but he works in the marketing space in the States, and he said that the total value of the global legal service provided annually amounts to only 26% of the available legal market. So, there's an awful lot of billions of dollars being spent on only a small part of the legal problems that are out there. And, access to justice for all, the ability to, lose the paradigm that we all face that I can't talk to a lawyer because it's going to cost me money. He's going to use words I can't understand. And that does happen. This is where, once again, we get back to the whole people matter things. And as businesses, we need to challenge what we do and bring about the changes that puts these services in front of those who have thought in the past that they are not available to them. I think I answered in the question when you sent them around. First up, Emma, that in the UK, there's that program AI that sits there and adjudicates on civil matters up to a certain point, and it's achieving results of around 95% satisfaction with the judgments that are being given. Now, is that because people are thinking, okay, fair decision, or are they going, oh, well, it's a computer, I can't argue with it? I don't know. But certainly I think there are going to be technologies that come that are going to present things in a way that's totally alien to most of us, but are going to be there for people to participate with, to bring about and solve the solutions that they have. Tech is here. I joined banking in the days where we still, to a certain degree, handwrote our ledgers. So, I left and everything was computerised. I know that dates me, but anyhow, such is life. It's,
Write out handwrite bank checks still? Please tell me that's gone.
Yeah, that has gone.
When I first started,
Yep, that's right.
or printed them. Perhaps we printed the checks.
Yeah. So, it's, technology has a purpose. Technology has a future. It's in every aspect of our lives. And I saw a clip the other day, and it was speaking about 5G, and it was a surgeon. I'll be wrong on the exact place, but a surgeon in America was performing an operation by a robot on the other side of the world. And what he was doing, he was peeling a banana and removing from it a phone SIM card that had been inserted under the skin. And he cut it, he peeled it, he stitched it back, everything via 5G. Now, that's technology. This is our lives as they are going to be at some point in time. So there's no point sticking our heads in the sand and going, not to do with me, it's not going to happen. It is. So, the challenge for all of us is, what do we embrace? How do we use it? And is it going to solve a problem that we currently have?
To your question, Emma, I feel like tech has an integral role to play in terms of breaking down some of those barriers in access to justice, harking back to the quote that you shared with us. I think COVID was an incredible gift in the way of it catalysing us as an industry, but also as a society, including, the whole infrastructure of government, really to solve some very difficult, or at least attempt to solve some very difficult social policy problems that, we're all facing, and access to justice being one of them. But who would have thought, in February last year, that we'd be conducting court hearings online? There are so many barriers that have been broken down now, I think, that it would be such a missed opportunity if we didn't actually capitalise on those gains that have been made. And I think too, I'd be disappointed if I didn't raise the kind of, from a feminist perspective, what this has done for gender equality as well. I recognise that there are definitely some difficult issues from a social perspective that have arisen as a result of COVID, and, family violence being one of them in terms of the growth there. But if you look at, focusing on the positives, I suppose, and the gains, making sure that those barriers, those gendered structural barriers that have been in place for particularly women over decades now, that have been broken down as a result of technology, really, and critically the adoption of technology is something that we I think should be very grateful for. And as everybody said, there is always going to be a place for tech in our lives. The critical question really is how we harness that using our people in terms of making sure that we're still maintaining the very important human element in the equation. I think that's where we're sort of focusing.
I actually think that brilliantly summarises today's conversation, to be honest, Tessa. It's all about technology. It has its place, but it's more so about the people and the collaboration and bringing these things together to solve problems that we're all faced with. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our session. So I really want to thank you for all your contributions today. I think they have been fabulous. I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope that everybody that has the opportunity to watch this also does as well. It's also great to hear, and I always find it particularly beneficial when firms share what they're doing, because it's something that the legal industry, in particular, is keen to know what others are doing. And it is one of those questions that comes up at the partners table and the partners meetings about, well, who's doing what, and where, again, from that competition side of things, where do we rate, where are we sort of placed on our journey? And I think if this session shows us or tells us anything is we're all different. We're all on our own path. We're all on our own journey. And, you know, if we get the right people in the right seats on the bus, right tech, you know, you can steer and drive your firm to the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we hope that everyone has enjoyed this session. And if you would like to receive updates on or hear about the work of CLI or ALPMA, please do follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter. But that's it for now. So until next time, I hope you are right there, Tessa. And thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you online during the event.
You will. Thanks so much, Emma. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Bye.